My sister didn't invite me to her wedding because I'm adopted, but my parents are asking me to grow up and help pay off her wedding debts. No, that's not going to happen. My name is Sydney. I'm 27 years old and live a good life on my own. A life I've built through my hard work and the support of my fiancé, Luke. You're probably wondering, what about your family? Well, I haven't had the best relationship with them. In fact, they're the reason I'm here seeking advice. Let me give you some context before explaining why I'm reaching out. Like I mentioned, my relationship with my family has never been great. It's complicated and has been that way as long as I can remember. I was adopted by the Hensons because they couldn't have children of their own, but it was clear they didn't love me for who I was. They just wanted to fill the void of not having a child. Don't get me wrong, I'm not ungrateful. I truly appreciate them choosing me and giving me a somewhat better life than what I would have had in the orphanage. But when you look closely, it wasn't all that different. Still, I was grateful. For the first few years of my life, things were okay. Actually good. I wasn't spoiled, but I didn't lack love, and that was enough for me. It was much more than I got at the orphanage, so I was content. But everything changed when I was about 4 years old. My mom miraculously got pregnant, and suddenly everything shifted. I don't remember the exact moment, but I know it felt like I became invisible overnight. They were thrilled about the new baby, my younger sister Janice. I was happy to be a big sister, of course. But from the moment she was born, I felt like I didn't exist anymore. It hurt. A lot. They didn't say it outright, but it became painfully obvious they no longer wanted me. It was like I'd just been a placeholder until Janice came along and claimed her spot in the family. I started to feel like a mistake, an inconvenience they had to live with. For a little girl who just wanted to feel loved and important, it was devastating. I tried to keep things the way they were, to stay close to them, but the more I tried, the more they pushed me away. It wasn't that they were cruel to me. They still paid for my things. But it was clear they did it out of obligation, not love. The emotional neglect, the feeling of being unwanted, it left scars that will probably never heal. Even Janice, who I loved and thought of as my sister, treated me like a stranger. She was just a baby when she entered my life. But as she grew, it became obvious she didn't see me as part of the family. She barely acknowledged me, and when she did, it was with the indifference you'd show a neighbor you don't care about. Growing up feeling like a burden was incredibly hard. That's why, as a teenager, I started distancing myself from my family. It was just easier that way. I spent more time alone or with friends because I knew I wasn't going to get the love or attention I needed from them. Sometimes I even thought it would have been better if they'd never adopted me. It felt like they'd taken me in only to ignore me, and that hurt so much. I don't know what's worse, not having a family at all, or having one that doesn't care if you exist. For me, the latter was worse because I lived in the constant pain of being unwanted. So, as soon as I turned 18, I moved out and distanced myself from them. I didn't cut ties completely. We still talk, and I visit during holidays. But I've kept them at arm's length. I've built a life I'm proud of, even if it's not tied to the family I grew up with. My fiancé Luke has been my rock, giving me the love and support I've always wanted. He's shown me what a real family can feel like. Fast forward to now, I live in a different city with Luke. We're happy, independent, and building a future together. My relationship with my parents remains distant, but I've accepted that. It doesn't mean the void they left in my heart is gone, but I've learned to live with it. Recently, things have taken an unexpected turn. Janice got engaged to a guy named Peter, and now my family is suddenly reaching out. They want me to help with wedding preparations and even assist with the costs. My parents have been messaging me, asking if I'll participate and come to the wedding. They're painting it as a family affair, where my presence is important. Janice herself hasn't said much, but my parents are insistent. They're trying to make it seem like we all need to come together for her big day. I'm confused and honestly a little hurt. The same family that made me feel like I didn't belong is now asking me to be part of something so important. I haven't had a deep conversation with Janice since we were kids. She's never shown any interest in me as a sister, and now I'm expected to act like everything's fine, as if the years of emotional neglect never happened. It's not just that, though. Even though I still visit them for holidays and such, I've spent most of my life trying to protect myself from the pain they caused me. The idea of getting involved in something that could potentially reopen old wounds feels strange. On the other hand, I know Janice is my sister, even if we never connected that way. Part of me wonders if this could be her way of trying to build a relationship with me, even if she doesn't fully realize it. Maybe this is exactly what I need to finally have the family I've longed for. Perhaps this is how I can fill the void in my heart. And so, here I am, stuck and in need of your advice. Should I help with the preparations and take this as an opportunity to mend things with my family? Or should I continue protecting myself as I've been doing all this time? Luke thinks I should help if I want to. He says it's my decision, but that it could be a way to reconnect with them. He's been nothing but supportive and truly understands where I'm coming from. Still, I can't help but feel conflicted. So, I guess I'm asking for your advice. Is this worth my time, or should I keep my distance? I'll update when a few weeks have passed since my initial post, and I wish I had good news. I really thought this time things would be different. But here I am, sitting here, furious, venting to a group of strangers, realizing I've been a complete fool. Honestly, I don't even know why I let myself get caught up with this toxic family again. Deep down, maybe I just wanted to believe my family finally cared, that maybe they'd finally acknowledge my worth and we could start fixing things. Well, spoiler alert, they didn't. After writing here, I spent a few days reading the comments and thinking about what to do. Many of you were understanding, encouraging me to give it a shot. Others were blunt, calling me stupid for even considering it. How I wish I had listened to you. So, as you've probably guessed, I decided to help my family with the wedding preparations. Yeah, I know. I should have trusted my instincts or listened to some of you who told me to stay away. But I thought maybe this was their way of trying to reconnect. I wasn't expecting miracles or some big your family moment, but I figured if they were reaching out, there had to be some sincerity behind it, right? I was wrong. Here's exactly what happened and why I'm so furious that I don't know what to do other than vent about it. After I told my parents I was willing to help with the wedding, things were fine for a while. My parents acted more attentive than they had been in my entire life. My mom even hugged me when I agreed to help, and I can't even remember the last time she did that. It was something I'd been longing for so long that, as the emotional fool I clearly am, I let my guard down. I thought maybe they were trying to make up for all the years of neglect. I should have known it was too good to be true. As the plans moved forward, I even bonded with Janice like I never had before. It was like she finally acknowledged me as her sister after all this time. It felt good. But that's when things got weird. Janice started asking me for money. At first, it was small things, extra cash for decorations, a deposit for the venue. She made it sound urgent, like if she didn't pay immediately, she'd lose the reservation. She told me she had a big payment coming up and promised she'd pay me back in a few days. I didn't think much of it. Money isn't an issue for me, and I didn't mind helping my sister. But in the back of my mind, I felt a little skeptical about the whole thing. Still, every time I doubted her, Janice would turn on the charm. She assured me it was temporary, that she'd pay me back soon, and that she genuinely wanted me to be part of the wedding. For the first time, I felt included, like the older sister I always wanted to be. It's almost embarrassing how much I craved that. So yeah, I made a few big payments. Financially, it didn't hurt me much, but emotionally, I kept feeling unsure if any of this was real. Still, I pushed forward, thinking I was helping my family and contributing to my little sister's wedding. Then, the bomb dropped. The day after most of the preparations were done, Janice told me I couldn't come to the wedding. After helping her create this perfect wedding, She said, I simply couldn't be there. Her reason? She wanted the wedding to be blood family only. And since I'm adopted, it wouldn't be appropriate for me to attend. I was in shock. It felt like a lightning bolt hit me. I just stood there, stunned, trying to process what she was saying. Blood family only? As if I hadn't been there for her since the day she was born. As if I wasn't the one who had just saved them financially with this wedding. Suddenly, all my childhood insecurities came rushing back. That's when I realized they never wanted to reconnect or fix things with me. They just wanted to use me. And now that they've gotten what they needed, they're tossing me aside. They've always been this way, and I was the idiot who thought things could change. I allowed myself to be used and discarded like trash. So, I left. Immediately. I didn't say a word to Janice or my parents. I didn't even look back. I just walked out. I was furious, and I still am. Part of me is angry at them, but another part is angry at myself for letting this happen. I should have known better. I should have trusted my instincts. But no. I let myself believe in some fairy tale where they finally wanted me. Well, I'll tell you one thing. I'm done. Absolutely, completely done with them. Done with their lies. Done with being the forgotten daughter they only remember when they need something. And now? I'm planning something. I don't know if it will work, but they're not getting away with this. They think they can treat me like garbage and move on with their lives? Well, they'll have to face the consequences. I'll update you all once I put my plan into action. Until then, goodbye. Update 2. Hi, it's Sydney again. It's been a few days since my last update, and let's just say things have gotten interesting. Or rather, karma finally showed up and did its thing. The wedding was a few days ago, and guess what? My phone hasn't stopped ringing since, and yes, it's my parents calling nonstop. But no, they're not calling to apologize or to admit that what Janice did was wrong. Instead, they're calling me for help. Why? Apparently Janice is drowning in debt, and somehow they think it's my fault. Remember how I mentioned I was planning something after the whole blood family only fiasco? Well, I decided that if Janice wanted to use me and then toss me aside like garbage, she'd have to face the consequences of her actions. After I calmed down enough to act rationally, I went and canceled every reservation I had made for her wedding. Every single one. The deposits, the payments, everything. Some of the money I'd spent was refunded, but of course, not everything was reimbursable. I didn't care. That was the price I was willing to pay to see Janice struggle with what she valued most at that moment, her perfect wedding. Once I canceled the major arrangements, the wedding started to fall apart, and it all went downhill fast. As soon as Janice realized what I'd done and saw her wedding unraveling, she started running around trying to reorganize everything at the last minute. Because of the rush, she ended up having to pay way more than I had originally spent. Desperate, she took out a huge loan to cover it all. Now she's up to her neck in debt because she thought she could play me and get away with it. Well, needless to say, the wedding was an absolute disaster. Sure, it was a wedding, but nothing compared to the perfect event I had helped plan. Since everything was done last minute, it turned out to be a total circus, and Janice was completely embarrassed, at least according to what I've heard. At the end of the day, though, she got married, and I guess that's what matters. Except, of course, for the mountain of debt she's now stuck with. And that's why my parents won't stop calling me. They're trying to guilt-trip me into helping her again. They keep saying that Janice is in a bad situation, and that as her older sister, it's my responsibility to take care of her. Seriously? Where was that older sister role during her wedding? Oh, right. I wasn't invited because I'm not blood. They even had the audacity to tell me I should let go of the past and be the bigger person. I actually laughed when they said that and told them I'm not a doormat they can walk all over when it's convenient for them. Janice created this mess herself, and if she thought she could use me without consequences, she was sorely mistaken. I also told them they should ask a blood relative for help instead. Then, I hung up the phone. Honestly, it feels so good to finally stand up for myself. My whole life, I've been the forgotten one, the outsider, the one they only reach out to when they need something. But now, they know I'm done. So, Janice is stuck with her mountain of debt, and my parents are begging me to help her. But I don't care. I'm done with them and their toxic behavior. They can deal with the mess they created. It's not my problem anymore. I think that's the end of my story. For the first time in a long while, I feel closure, and I'm enjoying this newfound peace with my fiancé. Well, aside from the constant ringing of my phone, but that's what the block button is for, right? Anyway, thank you all for your support through all of this. Update 3. Just when I thought it was over, I never imagined I'd be writing this update, but here we are, just days after the last one, because my sister has reached new lows I didn't even think were possible. After everything that happened, I thought I was done with all of this. But, of course, Janice had other plans. She wasn't going to let me walk away so easily. When I refused to help her with her debt, Janice must have been furious, blaming me for the situation she'd put herself in. So, she decided to take things further and mess with me even more. Bad idea. In her twisted mind, she thought she could get revenge on me. And honestly, it's almost laughable how miserably it all backfired. Here's what happened. A few days after I told her no, Janice sent a bunch of fake photos to my fiancé, Luke. Yes, she actually had the audacity to claim she'd caught me cheating on him the night before. She even pretended to be the concerned sister, apologizing to him for what her sister had done, and claiming she was embarrassed to be related to someone who could betray him like that. Ignore the anger bubbling up inside me. This woman was trying to destroy the one good thing I have in my life. She needed to be put in her place, once and for all. Initially, I hadn't planned on doing anything to retaliate, but Janice left me with no choice. Here's the thing. During the wedding preparations, I saw something I've kept to myself until now. I saw Janice kissing another man. Yes, she was making out with someone who wasn't her husband. I even took photos, not because I wanted to ruin her marriage, but because I had a feeling something wasn't right. At the time, I decided it wasn't my place to get involved. But now, after what she tried to pull with Luke, why should I care about her marriage anymore? So, I sent the photos to her husband Peter and told him everything. Peter didn't waste a second. By the end of the day, Janice was out of the house, and he'd filed for divorce, or annulment, I'm not sure. What I do know is they're done. Look, this isn't something I'm particularly proud of. But Janice left me no choice. She started this war, and I ended it. Now Janice is practically ruined. She tried to crawl back to our parents, but even they wouldn't take her in. They know her debts would become their problem, and since she doesn't work, they'd be the ones stuck paying for it. They've completely washed their hands of her. As for where Janice is now, I have no idea. Probably staying with some poor soul who doesn't yet realize what they've gotten themselves into. But honestly, I don't care. She wanted to play with fire, so I brought the napalm. Update 4. The first thing I want to say is that while my sister Janice has learned a valuable lesson about not messing with me, it doesn't mean she's figured out how to behave decently with the rest of the world. It seems her talent for creating chaos is limitless, and now she's decided to target our parents, not me this time. After her husband filed for divorce, Janice realized she was in a much worse position than she'd imagined. Not only is she drowning in massive wedding debt, but she also needs to find a job urgently just to stay afloat. For years, she lived in the comfort of never having to worry about things like working or managing money. She always had either my parents or her husband covering for her. But now that she's lost both sources of support, she's facing a reality she never thought she'd have to deal with. And this is where things get even more ridiculous. Instead of taking responsibility for her life, Janice has decided to sue our parents. Yes, you read that right. She's suing them. And the reason is so absurd, I promise you'll either laugh or get angry, depending on how you look at it. According to Janice, my parents should have paid for the entire wedding because, as her biological parents, it was their duty. Her logic? Since my parents had her after years of infertility, they're supposedly responsible for her happiness. In this case, her wedding. Yes, I know how insane this sounds, but in her mind, it's a brilliant plan. Janice is convinced that my parents forced her to take out loans for the wedding, and therefore they're to blame for her debt. She's essentially suing them to recover the money she borrowed, acting like they're somehow responsible for her mess. I can only imagine the judge's reaction when they read her lawsuit. Honestly, I'd pay to be in the courtroom just to see their face as they try to process this family drama. I can't picture anything other than suppressed laughter at how ridiculous this is. Let's be real here. Janice was the one getting married, not my parents. If she wanted an extravagant wedding, she should have paid for it, or at least made smarter decisions, and we don't even need to mention the fact that if she hadn't cheated on her husband, she wouldn't be in this situation to begin with. But of course, in Janice's world, everyone else is responsible for her bad decisions, except her. The irony of it all? Janice isn't just demanding that my parents pay off her wedding debt, she's also hinted that they should remove me from their will. At this point, I couldn't care less about their will. Honestly, I don't want anything from this family. I've worked hard to build my own life, and I'm happy with what I have, far away from this chaos. So here I am, watching my sister sink further and further, dragging everyone around her into her spiral of problems. And all I can think is, thank God, I'm not part of this circus anymore. It's like watching from the outside as the monkeys run wild, causing chaos everywhere they go. Edit. For those wondering, Janice's lawsuit went absolutely nowhere. The result was as obvious as you'd expect.